All right, yeah. So I knew that God was calling me to be a married priest as I was on the ship, aboard a ship, and I started reading this book, started learning this language, and I was about three-fourths of the way through when I flipped to the front of it and realized that the author of this book, Marco Pavlishin, is actually a married priest with a son whose name is Damien. And the name Damien I actually came up with. I actually wanted to name my son that. I came up with that years before. And so that was a confirmation. And then on my right hand here, I had a mark. You can't see it on camera, but I have a spore here on my hand. And well, safe to say that you hold your right hand up. And I was a little persecuted for my marriage, as probably a lot of people were. But God put little signs out like that, and he even eventually gave me a name. And if you got a name before you got married, it might, 50% of the time they say that it comes to pass. When I was going to get married, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was in a whole new world. And so, but yeah, that's how I knew that I was called to marriage, because one thing that you're going to learn about marriage is you have to be called to it. If you're not called to it, then you probably shouldn't get married. And so, much like the priesthood, in marriage, I felt this calling. I felt the oil coming down on my head. Same thing with marriage. And so I was for certain that I was going to get married. I did have a name. I was a little cautious to go around, you know, sharing it, though God did confirm that name as well. But I kind of had to, kind of keep a distance from that person, because you know how people get when they fall in love. Well, what could you say about them? Well, you could say they're obsessed and all that stuff. But we know that love is a healthy obsession. And so it was just a friend, anyways. And so no big deal. But yeah, that's how I knew that God had given me permission to take a woman in marriage. And let me tell you something, it took work and it took years. It took years of devotion to Christ and work to get that woman, to get that virgin, to get that missionary. I really had to work at it. And so once I got aboard the ship, I knew that I was living right for God. And I went down into my berthing one night, and I was doing everything right for God. I remember it. And he just put it in my spirit. He gave me a name and everything else. And I started crying. I cried a few times. I had never felt that way about a female before. And ever since, I've just been kind of growing in it, you know, and that's all.